Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the coziest part of Solana's finest podcast, Soul Brothers, markets, prices, charts, and technical analysis. We're going to dive into the markets. We're going to take a look at where Solana's at and where it might go next. Welcome to the show, and thanks for co-hosting this section with me. How's it going?
It's going pretty well, except, I'm looking at the charts, and they're a little green today, but in the broader context, we are down bad, my friend.
Yeah, we saw almost $120 sold last week. 121.35 to be exact was the low that we printed, and I don't think people saw that coming really. So there's a lot of confusion in the market right now, and it's actually crazy how bearish it is. It is. I don't know how aware you are, but the fear and greed index, it's an indicator for sentiment, right? Like how are people looking at the market? And it is below 10, and it's below FTX crash low. So and you remember that time? Back then it was like we're dead. It was $8 Solana. It's over. People were literally quitting, and companies were going bankrupt and all that shit. And right now, nothing really happened. And I think that is the problem. Like, people are so confused why the sentiment is so low, because nothing really happened, and prices are actually not that much down, and we're going to take a look at that. But yeah, it's wild to me how negative the sentiment is right now.
Yeah, I remember looking at the fear and greed index a few days ago, and it did not match with my fear and greed. I felt like the market is very much overreacting to where we
Yeah.
are. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We should obviously. I'm going to pull up your screen over here so we can look at these lovely little numbers. But yeah, if we look at the historical
fear and greed.
crypto fear
Yeah.
and greed index over time, I think this is going back. Okay, so. This is tracking all the way to August, so a few months ago.
Let's do maths.
Sentiment was
So
yes.
this shows us like where we right now hit, and I mean we saw it early this year in February, where we had a big dump right after all that craziness of the year start. But that was the last time we saw like such low numbers, and then we go back all the way here into 2022, where we saw it as well happening. But yeah, it's fairly low, and you can also see that every time we are at these lower stages, there's some movement to the upside coming along, right? Like, it doesn't stay here long. That is something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I do think that there are things to be worried about. Okay, we're not doing so poorly today. But yeah, I do feel like there is a gross overreaction by the market. In fact, I was much more afraid during the tariff wars, right? Because I was very unsure how that was going to play out. And Trump always chickens out. So he reneged on a lot of his tariff warmongering. Some of it still remains true, but he's walked back a lot of that. Using it more as a bargaining chip than anything else. But Simon, let's not babble on for too long. I definitely want to look at the charts. So what are we looking at here?
Exactly, because honestly, whatever happens in the world out there and whatever fundamental news are moving the markets, one thing we can always do is we can look at how is price moving, and we can structure the chart. An unstructured chart, like without any indicators and without any theories overlaid, it doesn't tell us a lot, because it is just a historical indicator of number that went up and down. And it leaves us with confusion, really, right? But as soon as we start to apply some analysis strategies on top of it, and I wouldn't put too many on it, otherwise it gets confusing. But pick your 1 or 2 or 3 indicators that you feel like have worked for you, or you feel like make sense to you, and then apply these to the chart to make sense of it. And I personally feel that's why I talk about it every single TA, that simple indicators like resistance levels, volume zones, and liquidation levels paired together with Elliott wave theory, give us a very good idea of the market structure, really, because it helps me to make sense of what's happening. Because without the Elliott waves, I don't really know where we are. But right now, you know, the TLDR of what I'm about to explain here is that we might have seen the low for this current stretch here. Why might? Because I never know 100%, but I can apply probabilities based on Elliott wave strategies and targets, price targets based on FIB levels to the chart. So looking back here real quick, so you understand where I'm coming from, we had the last high that we printed at $250 back in September when the world looked still okay. And then from there, you remember maybe where people are like, okay, we're never going to see Sol below $200 again, yada, yada, yada. So that didn't really work out. So from there, we pulled back and we did a corrective ABC structure. And that is the big A down here, the big B up here, and then there's the C extension down here. The C wave extension can be also found by printing a FIB extension, the 100% FIB extension of the ABC structure here. So we take this low, we take this high from the B wave, and we draw an extension line to the chart based on FIBs. And that brings us to $123.92, which is pretty much where the price landed approximately. A few wicks shoot it below it. But if we go in the 4-hour chart here and we look at this, how it played out, actually no 4-hour candle closed below this level, the red line. So that red line here. And that means that, you know, the C wave could be completed technically. Now looking into the microstructures, because that is also very relevant to see if that's also indicating completion, we could technically argue as well that it indicates completion, because we have here a broader wave 1 to the downside, a wave 2 recovery, then an impulse. This is the wave 3 here. And then we have consolidation sideways, and then we have a final flush, which is the 5th wave to the downside in the circle, right? And so that also technically looks like completed. And then zooming even further in, we can go into the 15 minutes chart to really make sense of where we are right now. In the micro count here, we can also track a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decline. That was the 3rd wave here in brackets. And then we went sideways. That's where I was already considering, okay, are we going to turn around here or not? But it wasn't my primary scenario, because I knew that the 3rd wave needs a 5th wave low to be considered complete. So I was watching the sideways move here a lot, because we saw a big breakout here. And that was, I think, last week when NVIDIA announced some numbers, and it looked better than people expected. So everything recovered a little bit, but only for a short period of time. And it wasn't, the bulls weren't there yet. It was just this little breather in between. But then I counted as an A, B, C structure, which totally makes sense for a 4th wave. We went into this resistance area up here, and then went all the way down again into a lower low, surpassing the 3rd wave here and landing at where we are now, basically, right? And then after this, and we can also see it in the chart, in the movement of the price right now, it is messy. It is not. I can't track anything here, really. It makes no sense what's happening here to the price right now. But that for me is also a sign that there's actually right now max confusion in the market, because people are thinking, okay, the low might be in. I don't want to miss the low right now, so they keep buying spot positions, or even leverage position, opening leverage positions. And the bears are still pushing to the downside, but I think the bulls have a chance now to turn this around, because we have all waves completed, micro counts, sub counts, macro counts, and we are right now also on the Bitcoin chart in a heavily oversold territory, with the RSI printing 22.96, which is also insanely low. And last time when I did a quick TA with on YouTube here, where you haven't been part of, Eno, I told people that looking at the RSI on the Bitcoin chart, every time you see this vertical line here, the RSI made a significant low. But you can also see that every time that happened, the price recovered at some point, either briefly, right, or substantially, right? But it never stayed down there. Especially, and it doesn't even matter if we're in a bull and a bear market, by the way. If we're in a bear market and the RSI goes below 30 and significantly, it will do a little recovery rally. If we're in a bull market, it might actually print the freaking banana zone that Ralph Powell is talking about since eternity. And he got a point. He actually got a point, because I do think, and we can hop out of the charts, I think I remember. Do you remember when we talked about the banana zone for the first time? Like ages ago?
Yeah, no, yes, I do.
And the theory seemed a little bit ambitious, especially because the bull market right now was fucking weak. Like, it just was a slow and steady up, right? So we didn't take an elevator, right? We just climbed the hill the past year. So it was really like a slow, steady climb of the price. Banana zone, Ralph Powell's banana zone means, okay, we're seeing very hyper active price movements that are, parabolic. And we haven't seen that at all. So people kind of lost faith a little bit. But what you always said as well is that we will see a substantial bear trap kind of scenario where the prices go lower than people expect before that actually plays out. And he's been talking about this since a while. So to an extent, he was right, because it's literally happening right now. Like, we saw the price moving up over time. We saw new all-time highs. But then right now, we're washing out a lot of people. It's like billions. I think $40 billion of leverage has been wiped out of the markets. Historically, never seen before, by the way, like in this month, in this short time. And that is why people got so spooked, because the amount of liquidations and the amount of money we're right now taking out of the system is insane. But just looking back, it always found its way back to the upside. That's why I posted the other week that bears sound smart, because whenever the price goes down, they sound like, oh, I told you so. But bulls make money, because the price always finds its way to the upside eventually. So if you just hold onto your assets, you're printing. So yeah, do you think we're going to see the banana zone?
Well, I do believe that the only way to make real generational wealth is to take the non-consensus bet, right? That doesn't mean that all non-consensus bets are winners, right? Like, certainly not every, like, if not everybody believes in a certain meme coin or a shit coin, that doesn't make it by definition the next runner, right? But it is absolutely true that the outsized returns always come from non-consensus bets. So what that means in this context is that everyone thinks that bull markets as we remember them in the past are gone, and that's just because people have short-term memory. Am I calling the bottom here? Absolutely not financial advice. That is not what we do on the show. But if one were a betting man or a gambling person, you need to look for that non-consensus bet. And personally, I think that I mean, I have a much longer time horizon than I think most folks. I think you do as well. So I think that there is a bottom to buy sometime in the next few months. By few months, I'm meaning probably like 1 or 2 months. Could there be an even deeper bottom in 3-4 months? Absolutely. I don't know what the future looks like, but the point that I'm trying to make is that it's not bad to take a deep breath and kind of look at what the price is looking at, and if you have gunpowder, you might want to consider deploying some of that capital at a bottom that you see fit, right? Like, maybe think right now, what would be a price that you would be absolutely stoked to buy at? Just as for the sake of argument, I would be very happy to buy $80 Sol, like today, right? Like, if it were like, I don't know how it would feel if Sol was actually $80, but I'm just saying, from first principles, I think that $80 Sol is a no brainer. Some people might even have a bit of a higher price target, but if you see an asset that you love at a bargain fire sale prices, why not? I also saw that you brought on the banana zone charts. Do you want to pull that up real quick?
Just real quick, to kind of show where we might be at right now. Like, Ralph Powell kind of put this out, and he says that the Bitcoin cycle usually has a banana zone coming in where the price goes parabolic, and then here we have like a correction phase number 1 where the price tries to break out, but then it doesn't, and people get washed out and they get they're losing hope. But then there's another push that's coming, and then again same shit happens, correction phase 2, and then another push that happens. So it's not a straight line to the upside. At least it was at the beginning. Almost it was one straight to the upside in 2013 here. But then every time after that, whenever it happened again, there were always these correction phase in the middle. And right now we are here, right? So it's a point you could make, right? The charts do look similar, if you put it out in that fashion here. But obviously it's not a great indicator in my opinion. But it does add to all the other fundamental facts that I'm looking at, like the oversold RSI, like the Elliott waves that are still pointing at a potential another push to the upside and so on. So yeah, there's chance.
Yes, there's definitely a chance. We have some viewers who also feel this way. We have Super Simon, the lead of Super Team Canada, here on stream, and he says, Simon is giving me hopium.
Which one? Which
well,
side?
we
Himself?
Probably both, right? Bullish on Canada,
Okay.
and bullish on the banana zone. But anywho, that has been some of the chart action that we're looking at for this week. But in addition to the charts, Simon, we also have some macro news that we love to cover. Things that are going on in the world that may or may not affect the charts. We don't really know. It's all a spider web of information. But one thing that we'd love to talk about is we have a pretty good week incoming, right? We have PPI inflation, which is going to be reported tomorrow. We have jobs claims or jobless claims the day after. On the same day, PCE, and then on the 27th, market close because Thanksgiving, and then early close on Friday. But the point being is that we have some really interesting data that's going to be coming out this week. And depending on how that fares, we'll see how our longer term economic policy will be in the United States.
Exactly. And I think the fact that the week is shortened because of Thanksgiving is also something to keep in mind. Like usually that adds volatility because traders are trying to close the week already earlier than Friday. So that will impact the markets, but much more the PPI and CPI data is gonna and PCE is gonna impact it. But because all these printings are inflation related, so the PCE, actually the personal consumption expenditure, is the Fed's preferred inflation gauge. They're looking at the PCE preferably because it covers a broader basket of goods and services that households actually buy. So it's a more realistic idea of where inflation is at. Because you need to keep in mind inflation, it's difficult really to really know, right? It's always a basket of data points that you're looking at. But like the true inflation is almost impossible to know. So they're always trying to get the closest, right? The best one. So if you combine PPI and PCE, and we have both this week, you get a good idea. And if inflation is right now remains sticky or even goes higher, that would be not so good for risk assets, and it would decrease the chance for further rate cuts, which we are currently ideally looking for if we are holding any risk assets, which most of us do. So like a rate cut is right now still like the chances are going slightly up over the weeks right now for December rate cut, but it's still fairly balanced with no rate cut. So we need to see a few more data points here. And a lot of these data points that are coming in right now are also delayed due to the government shutdown that we experienced in the past few weeks. So there might be some jumps in what we expect and what the actual data is going to look like. So yeah, what I recommend is just keep an eye on these things. And obviously, if you see the price chart this week move a lot in any direction, then it might be sparked by some of these data points. But also keep in mind that this data is usually never really impacting the price of an asset in the long term. It just sparks inflation in volatility of the price in the short term. But then it smooths out again after a few days. So it can be traded, but it's difficult to trade. I would probably be very careful with that. But it will tell us at least the direction of where we're heading, which might be either up if inflation is less sticky and goes down, and if job markets need a bit more of a push, then that might be good for risk assets, and we might see a December that is more bullish than the November was so far. And yeah, that's what's
repeating that one time.
Yep.
For our folks in the back, if you do see a lot of volatility this week, perhaps click pause for a second. You don't have to jump right into the action. The prices will smooth out as they always do. But yes, it might be a bit of a spiky week. And in fact, looking a little bit more on the brighter side of the fence, let's call it a glass half full scenario. We have some really interesting macro setup. In the next couple of months. So, number one, Trump wants to have these. I think he called them tariff revenue share, if I remember correctly. It's like revenue share from all the supposedly, right? Really, what it is just
Yeah, like
printing money.
dividends. I think he
Yes.
said
Oh,
it's
yes.
dividends.
Tariff dividends, right? So those
Yeah.
are $2,000 stimulus checks, somewhat similar to what we saw during COVID. Japan also has a 110 billion stimulus package ready. China has already deployed $1.4 trillion. I want some more specifics on that. I'm wondering where China exactly deployed that money. The U.S. is issuing $1.9 trillion in treasuries annually. Stable coins, I think, are not a small part of that anymore. Actually, it's quite a large percentage of the treasuries that are being issued on an annual basis. The Fed is ending QT. Canada has restarted QE, and the global M2 money supply is sitting at record highs. So essentially, what this means in aggregate is that major economies all around the world are injecting liquidity at the same time. And when money starts to move, looks like crypto might be one of the main beneficiaries.
Yeah. Let's see if that money finds its way into the crypto markets. But also we're quite correlated right now with Nasdaq and S&P. So I think we need to see that all go up one more time in order to really feel that liquidity coming in. But it feels realistic to me, honestly, not gonna lie.
Yeah. Super Simon asks, does America's 51st state, Canada, also get a cut of those stimmy checks? Unfortunately not. I think you guys actually owe us a couple of tariffs.
Great.
Where do you think the money's coming from, bro? Well, that concludes, of course, the coziest part of the podcast where we talk about not only the charts, but also some of the macroeconomic news around the world so that you can make some informed decisions for yourself, do your own research about the price. But Simon, it's time to move on to our favorite part of the podcast. So take it away.
Exactly. So if you enjoy that kind of content, please let us know as well. Like leave a like on that video here and leave a comment as well, and subscribe to Soul Brothers, and make sure to check out our other videos where we are talking more about Solana ecosystem news, which you can also find on our channel. So yeah, please feel free to check out also these other videos. Thank you so much. Now, moving on. We are kicking off the next section of the pod where it's going to go about Solana news. And this is Soul Brothers with Simon and Eno, where it is our job to throw you into the Solana rabbit hole and show you around in our exciting ecosystem.
Our mission is to take you on the latest and greatest so that you never run out of fun things to talk about. Simon, a lot of news this week. It's been a little bit slow, I feel, for the last month, but there's a lot of drama, a lot of updates, a lot of new feature releases. I'm actually kind of excited to talk about the news this week.
Yeah, we have a lot of cool things coming up. I mean, we always have cool things on the Solana news horizon, but this time I feel also there's a lot of exciting things. So where do you want to start, my friend?
Yeah. Well, maybe you want to, let people know what are some of the broader things that we might be talking about during the podcast this week. You want to give them a little bit of a rundown?
Yeah. So we do have a new asset listing on Solana, day one listing on Solana, and it's happening on Sol and nowhere else. We're going to tell you what asset this is about. We have a new SIMD proposal for the Solana core infrastructure, the SIMD 0411, and we need to talk about this one as well because it has relevance to, well, our asset and potentially even the price of our asset. We have a Solana student hackathon that we're going to give a quick shout out to. And we also need to talk about what Coinbase just did last week, because that is actually, in my opinion, really, really interesting that they are doubling down to that extent on Solana. The largest on-chain Bitcoin reserve is also coming to Sol, as well as a new integration for the Solflare Explore page, which we're going to talk about as well. We do have the community spotlight nominations closing very soon, actually today, I think, or tomorrow. for the Breakpoint Community Spotlight nominations hosted by Soulflare and Solana Foundation. So we're gonna check that out as well. And we have a few news as well from SNS. There's a real farmer campaign going on, and we covered it already last week briefly. And it just got realer. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well, besides some flash trade and DEX updates that we're going to sprinkle in here as well. And that will wrap up today's show.
Yeah. So we're going to jump right into it. The first thing that Simon mentioned is very interesting. I haven't really seen this amount of cross collaboration between chains before. It does seem like the first of its kind, at least for Solana. But what we're seeing is that Monad is going to list day one on Solana. So you can trade Monad token on the Solana blockchain. The equivalent of this to me almost kind of feels like as if Base were to announce at that time when they did their TGE that Base is going to be its own chain, of course, but from day one we are going to list Base on all Solana DeFi applications on on Jupiter, have it verified. It's just interesting to see the amount of collaboration between Monad and Solana. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I think it's just ICM at its finest, right? It makes so much sense. Like if you like all you want for your token, whatever chain you're building and wherever whatever you're doing, really, if it's Ethereum land, if it's new L1, whatever you are, actually whatever asset you are putting out there in the world, you want liquidity and you want volume and you want price go up. So you go wherever you see the best chance for that to happen, right? So that's why the biggest companies list their companies on Nasdaq, which is difficult and very rigorous and very expensive and very lengthy. You pay millions of dollars to prepare the files needed from your lawyers and from your bankers to list on a public market like the Nasdaq. Now, Monad listing day one on Solana is definitely way cheaper than listing on Nasdaq because that's internet capital markets. It makes access, not only access, but also the listing process permissionless, right? Because everyone can list on Solana. We don't give a shit. Like we saw a lot of bad things listed on Solana this year as well, as part of the meme coin craze. And it happened. It is permissionless. But now we're seeing really, really good and valuable assets coming to this blockchain. Why? Because they're looking for the best economical case for their asset, and I think they can find it on Solana.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of liquidity here and all the user activity, and it's not a bad idea to bootstrap a lot of your first activity on a chain, obviously, with lots of users. And we've also noticed that in the past, there have been certain chains that have really nice synergy with Solana. So just to list off a couple of examples, Hyperliquid, many Solana users have switched onto Hyperliquid for a lot Hyperliquid, not Hyperlipid, for all their perps trading. Obviously, Sui, when NFTs looked like they might have kind of been back earlier this year. We saw a lot of Solana folks, especially the NFT crowd, talking about Sui. And Monad, I haven't really quite wrapped my head around what type of Solana user is interested in Monad. I know that the only Nam, of the Bonk team is a huge supporter. And the Bonk team obviously wants to support Bonk cross chain, but Monad seems to be one of those chains that a lot of serious builders, people who have been building on the chain for a very long time, are bullish on. So yeah, it's just very interesting to see that kind of cross collaboration between chains.
Yeah. I mean, again, if Solana really wants to be the layer where all assets trade, then that includes all other blockchain native assets and cryptocurrencies. It kind of makes a lot of sense now. back a year ago, you probably would have thought differently. You'd have like they need to have their own fucking thing and whatever. But you see what happens to all the coins that are not trading on Solana. I mean, the case is pretty clear.
Sorry, there's just this one comment that we got that I think is fucking hilarious, which is thing one and thing two, but one is Chinese and the other just bloody American. And the funny thing is, I didn't know that Simon was Chinese.
Wait a second. I didn't even get it. I don't, who's calling? He's calling me Chinese and you American, or you?
No, you're the American and I'm the Chinese.
Okay.
But technically, I'm the American, so you're the Chinese.
True. So now I'm the Chinese.
How's your Chinese,
obviously.
Simon? Ni hao ma?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm out. I I haven't even been there yet. So yeah, very far from me.
So we
What next we
have
got?
a really big update in the world of Solana improvement documents. I really love that we started covering SIMDs on this show. In the past, I didn't pay attention to them at all. But also, to be fair, I also the SIMDs have been much more active in 2025 than they have in years previously. So this is a proposal that's been put up by Mert, and essentially what he wants to do it's called SIMT 411. He wants to reduce the amount of disinflation, or actually increase the amount of disinflation by 2x, right? So if you look at the current SIMD, the current disinflation rate, you'll see that the plan was to get to a 1.5% target inflation rate in 6.2 years, right? And in order to get there, we had 15% disinflation. The SIMD 411 doubles the disinflation to 30%, which means that we would get to the 1.5% inflation rate in literally half the time, right? Double, so half. not that
Yeah.
not that hard. But the point being is that for validators, if you look over at this nifty article written by our friends over at Pine Analytics, I really love this piece. They help us understand SIMD 411. And really, what you have to know here as a validator is probably these numbers, right? So the nominal staking yields will decline smoothly. In year one, 5%. So that would be next year. 2 years from today, if it were to pass today, the staking yields would be about 3.5%. In year three, the staking yields would be about 2.42%. So again, let's be very, very clear. This was always the plan, right? The question that SIMD 411 asks is whether or not we want to reach these staking yields in half the time. Another point that the supporters of this proposal really want to make is that only 10 validators would become unprofitable in the first year. They're really hitting on this piece of information because if you remember with SIMD 228, which was wildly unpopular, the main argument that folks were making is that because of the dynamic emission schedule, many of the smaller validators would take a hit and therefore would become unprofitable very quickly. Like basically overnight. Whereas what's different here is that we're only changing one variable, and that is the disinflation rate, increasing it from 15 to 30%. But at the end of the day, what this means is that less performant validators would have more time to try to earn more money, right? So that would mean with this new plan, we would be reducing 22.3 million SOL into the market. And at current prices, that's about 3 billion. So I'll pause there. And what do you make of SIMD 411? You got any questions on it, or does it fill you with optimism, dread? Do you think this is good for token price? Would love to get the Simon take.
I think the upsides are huge in my opinion. Like there's a lot of good positives about this. Every current Sol holder is basically a winner, essentially, because we're increasing or decreasing the amount of Sol in circulation, which is most times a good thing for an asset to do. So it sounds like a pretty bullish pre-launch for Solana, right? But then I don't know about the API point. Why actually is that? Like, do you know that? Like, do you know why the APY is going down?
Because
in
the
validation?
emissions that are paid out to validators are decreasing, right? I mean, which is always true every year, but it's just on an accelerated schedule, and so we already would have. So you're earning not block rewards, but inflation rewards, right? Inflation rewards are a part of your yield that you earn as a validator, and that yield is passed on to stakers. You, as a validator, do charge a commission on that. So this is not, to be very clear, your take as a validator, but to your stakers, right? You would now have less inflation yield to be able to pass on to stakers.
But wouldn't like the price is also going up potentially from this proposal. Like at least that's the idea, right? Like Sol price could benefit
That's the
from.
SOL price, but that has nothing to do with the yield, right? Because the yield is not paid out in USDC denominated terms. The yield is paid out in SOL terms, right? So when you
Exactly. So
stake,
I get more if the price goes up. I get more
only if
USDC.
SOL goes up. So, but you're talking about
Yeah.
in USDC denominated terms. So this is great, it like I think most validators wouldn't care about losing half of their yield if SOL price 4x's, right? It doesn't
Mm.
fucking matter
Yeah.
because it's kind of like,
Yeah.
but is that realistically going to happen? Probably not.
Tough to say. Yeah.
Tough to say. And there's so many things. I mean, you know this more than anybody, looking at the charts and looking at all the macro data and talking about this every week. But it's not any no single SIMD or any single integration or partnership or move or listing is going to 4x SOL immediately. It's the aggregate of everything over a sustained drumbeat of time.
Of course.
But still, the absolute SOL in SOL denominated terms, that you would earn in say 3 years time, would be about 2.5%, 2.4%. So yes, you would be earning less in SOL denominated terms. And if SOL price does not go up for whatever reason, God forbid, in the next 3 years, that is not a good thing. But reducing the amount of SOL in circulation over the next 3 years or 6 technically by 22 million is not so bad, right? How much is that going to affect SOL price? I don't know, but it's like about $3 billion in leakage, as Mert calls it, that some people feel that we don't have to pay.
Okay. Yeah, he got a case. I mean, he has a case, but I'm just personally a bit afraid, obviously, about the health of the validator ecosystem on Solana. Like, it is tough. Like, it's a tough landscape to survive in, which is, I guess, what they want as well. Like, it needs to be competitive, and we want high performance, right? Like, but there's also a limit, right? How tough should you make it in order to not lose too much of the decentralization that we're also already struggling with.
That's a bit of a sticky question. It's a very, very sticky question because I mean, looking at it from Tolly and probably even Mert's perspective, it's like if you haven't found a way to become profitable with the SOL prices that we're at and haven't been able to track stake in the time that you've had, and you'll even see this with the Solana delegation program, they've slashed it considerably, right?
Yeah.
So all the signals from the highest levels are telling you basically like get better at it or tough shit. That's what they're saying, right?
True.
But at the same time, they're still trying to onboard more high quality validators, like competitive validators, people who have not even started staking in Solana. I know our friend BM is working on an initiative over in South America, right? So clearly, there's still an appetite for geographic decentralization. Even Double Zero has a 13 million SOL delegation that they got from Foundation. This is all public information, by the way. But like they get that in the name of geographic decentralization. So it's not like the Foundation and ANZA does not want new validators. It's just that they have a very, very high quality bar, right? And but it's tough. It's a very, very tough business. I empathize with you very deeply. I think everyone is feeling the squeeze.
Yep. But there's always two coins, right? Two sides to a coin. So on the other side, I also see the point of this. Last time when we talked about SIMD 228, if I recall it correctly, this was part of the discussion. And a lot of people were actually asking for a simplified version that is just reducing inflation. And that's it. And now I think we got it. Is it? Do you know if the proposal is right now just in evaluation stage, or is it already is it up for vote already?
I think it's very much just a discussion, but what we've seen with previous SIMDs is they move very quickly, right? I should look a little bit deeper into when exactly they're going to be voting on this. But I remember one SIMD we talked about on a Monday, and then by like Friday, it had already reached quorum, from what I remember. So like these things do move quite fast. I also think the timing of it is very clever, especially for Mert, right? So they've made a couple of adjustments this time. So this time it's not the multi-coin cabal as well as Max Resnick from Anza that's making it. It's Mert that's doing
Mm,
it, right? So that's
mm,
clever, right? And the second clever thing is he obviously timed it for when Sol is doing very poorly. I
mm,
100% believe that he's had this in the back pocket ever since 228, right? But was just waiting
mm,
for the right timing for when to release it. And when's
mm.
the maximum probability to do this? Uh, you know, like when would it pass? It's when Soul price is down, when people are feeling
Yeah,
bad and they want price to do something to the price. So like this is
yeah,
it's very masterfully politically timed.
true.
I don't have a negative or a positive opinion about that. It's just I'm just calling it what it is, which is very
Yeah,
masterfully timed.
yeah, fair. Yeah, let's see. Let's see. Once it's up for vote, if it's gonna pass. I think chances are not bad for this proposal to pass. We'll see.
Yeah.
We will let you guys know once we have more details on this one.
Absolutely. I mean, like if Soul price was up like at $300, like nobody would vote for this, right? Because like why would nobody's incentive is to give themselves less money, right? Like
Mm,
everyone's incentive is to give themselves more money, but markets are cyclical, so we will
mm.
definitely keep you up to date with where we are with SIMD 411. Moving on to other pieces of news, we have a Solana student hackathon. So registrations are open for the Solana Student Hackathon this fall, a month-long online event for students who want to learn, build, and ship real projects on Solana. I love initiatives like this. So there's a registration window all the way from November 20th. So it started 4 days ago, all the way to December 7th. So people have about a week and a half to register for the Solana Student Hackathon. And the winners will be announced right before Christmas, December 24th. There's a building period,
Mm,
a kickoff period. So it's a very short time window, but if you wanted to learn how to build on Solana, now's your time to do so.
cool. I like that. We need more fresh people joining this ecosystem. I've heard that Solana is also more and more focusing on corporate talent in future. Something a few birds told me.
Yeah,
Um, and like big ex Microsoft, whatever the fuck, like big expensive developers, which is good. But I also think that this ecosystem so far has been built by a lot of new emerging talent straight out of college. So I'm always happy to see initiatives that will give us more of that talent as well.
of course, of
Very
course.
cool.
And talking about other news that's very, very bullish, but also has been a little controversial over the weekend. We have this lovely post from Brian Armstrong. He said earlier this year, we would level up. I said that we would level up our Solana game. Since then, we've brought
Mm.
Agent Kit and X402 to Solana, made upgrades to infrastructure to scale services, 5x improvements in block processing, et cetera, et cetera. And now we're bringing Solana native tech and talent to plug into our platform and level up support for Solana trading at Coinbase. He, of course, quote tweeted this announcement by Coinbase, which is that Coinbase is acquiring the Vector.fund team, an on-trade trading platform built on Solana, whose tech will plug directly into Coinbase to help better serve one of crypto's most active ecosystems. So for those of you who don't know what Vector.fund was, it was kind of like a trade with your friends mobile and desktop app. So it would send you kind of these signals. You would subscribe to different folks' accounts and you could copy trade. You would get a notification on your phone saying that Ansem just bought 500 million dick butt, right? And then
Mm.
you could also decide to, I hope that's not a real token. Probably. Um, and it would also give you sell signals as well. So, Ansem sold 500 million of dick butt. Um, and Vector, of course, was a spin-off of Tensor. And Tensor was, at a period of time, the number one NFT marketplace on Solana. Absolutely goated team. I actually really like Ilya and Richard personally. They seem like very honest people. I don't agree with Ilya's tweets all the time, but that has nothing to do with what I think about him as a person, which is very high integrity.
Mm.
That being said, very, very controversial back and forth this weekend. Did you see some of that chatter?
Yeah, I think it's wild that I mean, I understand that they're acquiring the team and the talent, but don't they have their own L2? Like, why, why are they doubling down on Solana? Why is Coinbase doubling down on Solana if you have your own
Well, I mean,
L2?
it's probably because they've gotten so many customer support complaints. In the like Brian has gotten yelled at multiple times in 2025 for sometimes the Solana transaction speeds make no sense. It's like the transaction is processed like 30 minutes later or an hour later, which is like, what are you guys doing in the back end
Yeah,
that
yeah.
makes that a thing? But I'm actually more referring to the allegations of Tensor token insider trading, as
Mm.
well as this point that Xiong made over the weekend that this is acquisition is nothing to celebrate, and it actually brings back um, tokens, especially equity tokens, by a number of years. This is a really bad precedent to set. I don't know if you were paying attention to some of that back and forth, but there are some people who are very, very unhappy with this acquisition.
Mm. So what's the problem? Like token holders are complaining mainly, like Tensor token holders.
So there's two things that people are complaining about. Number one, there is a wallet that is clearly associated with the Tensor Treasury wallet. So this would probably be an
Mm.
employee who loaded up on Tensor tokens right before the announcement. So
Okay.
before anybody knew what was happening, the Tensor token pumped very
Yeah.
considerably for I think 2 days before the announcement, and then right after the announcement was made, that wallet dumped, and
Mm.
and then it sent its funds, the USDC, to Coinbase. So clearly, Coinbase knows who this person is. They have
Mm.
access to that wallet, and they know who received those funds. So that investigation is ongoing. Coinbase has confirmed that there's an investigation into who
Mm.
exactly purchased those Tensor tokens and dumped them.
Mm.
That is not cool, right? Like you cannot be insider trading information that you have on an acquisition and then dumping right after
Yeah.
the announcement. So that's a big no-no. Retail users lose there. So especially if it
Mm.
was a Tensor
Very true.
employee, right? So
That's so stupid as well. Like, isn't it?
yeah,
Is it so stupid to send it back to your Coinbase account? So I
yeah,
mean, I don't want to say that's the right thing to do. Just do it right. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it is absolutely wrong if you do it in insider trading, but I also think it's silly.
yeah.
The
Well, I
way to do
mean,
it.
also it was like his profit was about $160,000, right? Which is about a 1 year average engineer's salary, right? So like, why ruin your credibility in the ecosystem for 1 year salary, right?
Mm.
Again,
Mm.
I'm not saying, well, if you're gonna rug, then rug for much more money. Like that's definitely not what we're saying.
Great advice
Um,
here from us. Yeah.
right. But the second thing is that why Xiong is so against this style of acquisition is
Mm.
because if we're trying to claim as an ecosystem that we have equity tokens now and anybody that has revenue should have a token, well, that thesis only works if people feel that they have claims to the company, right? So what that means is that if the company gets acquired, I as a token holder get a share of that because I have claims to the company. What happens when you as a team, let's say Tensor, have a bunch of comms saying that this is a revenue token, but then when you're acquired, then token holders see no part of that and only the equity holders eat, right? That is a problem. And actually, one of the main theses of Futarchy's latest token launchpad is that you actually do have claims to the company, right? So, like, if they call them unruggable tokens, because this is exactly the scenario that Futarchy is
Mm.
trying to solve for. There is a
Okay.
split between equity and
Hmm.
token value. And no,
Mm.
and the reason why Seong is upset is no one is going to take token value seriously, which means that nobody's tokens pumps if
Mm.
we are scared that Coinbase is going to acquire a great team, right?
Mm.
And then the token holders see no share of that, right? And it goes all to the team. Now,
Yeah.
I have a couple of other observations just generally, which is number one, if meme coin market is not doing well, so I don't think Tensor is, I mean, Vector, whatever, Tensor is the Vector
Yeah.
token,
Yeah.
is doing particularly well. I don't, so there's not like a lot of revenue to share there, right? The second thing that I would say though is that usually in an acquihire situation, which is no offense, but it's if your team isn't doing well. You get acquired for your tech if your product is doing well. You get acqui-hired for people if your tech is not doing so well, but you're awesome, right? It's the second scenario. So
Yeah.
honestly, I don't think that there was a lot of money that I don't think that Ilya is walking away with multi-million dollars, right? That could have been shared with token holders. If anything,
Okay.
it's probably more of like a signing bonus amount of money, right? So it's like, how much money are we really talking that would go to token holders? Like 500K, 600K, maybe. I mean, I don't know the specifics of the deal. I'm just saying that if this was an acquisition, there would be a lot more money to share amongst token holders. It's not. Okay, it's acqui-hire, which means that there's probably not a lot of money to share. But anywho,
Yeah.
that's been a major point of contention in the community over the weekend. These types of
Very
acquisitions are
interesting.
very harmful to equity tokens
Yeah.
or revenue
Yeah. I
tokens.
mean,
Excuse me.
exactly. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, we don't have that really. Like, we're talking about equity tokens and we're talking about revenue tokens. But it's just a term, right? Like, it's not. There's nothing, as you said, like if you do it with MetaDAO, maybe there are some legal claims, but 90% of the tokens that we have out there right now, you can call them RevCoin, but only because you wrote an article how they will accrue revenue, right? Like there's no further evidence that they're actually that. So TLDR here for me. I think this is hurtful but needed for the industry to move forward, because we are learning things from this now, from these scenarios that we can use to build better companies pegged to tokens. And we've come already a long way, and I think we're getting better at this. And there's companies out there like MetaDAO, also like Seedplex. Shout out to to Trex, who's building and Spaceman Dev. They're building tokenized equity tokens, basically. So they you tokenize your equity shares and put them in tokens. Exactly that, the same thing, right? So there's the technologies are being built because we have a need for it. I think we're going to get there, and we need to see a few more of these critical cases to come up with better ideas and learn from it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I have mixed feelings on this. I think the founders are great. I don't think that they were ill-intentioned. I think the crypto Twitter doesn't have all the information. They're not really seeing the situation objectively. There's probably not a lot of money that could have been distributed to token holders anyways. But the optics of it look horrible, right? Like, I'm not going to deny that. Just the optics look like really shit. If you take the case of Jupiter, which acquired Sonar Watch, and Sonar Watch had a token, Sonar. What they did was they took a snapshot of all Sonar token holders, and they looked at the dollar amount value, and then they gave a certain amount of Jupe based on that value to all Sonar token holders. That makes sense, right? Like, you want to make your token holders whole in some way. The gesture almost matters more than what actually happens. But in this case, there doesn't seem to have been much that was done. So yeah, just the optics don't look so great, but I am very happy for the Vector and the Tensor team.
Cool.
Oh, by the way, if there's anybody here that has a Vector app and you haven't checked it in a long time, please export your private keys. I think in the next 24 hours. You have 5 days since the announcement to export your private keys into new wallets. Soulflare. If you got money on there, that announcement was made a few days ago, so you got about 24, 48 hours before they shut down the app for regulatory reasons, because they're working with Coinbase now. So please be sure to go onto the Vector app and export your private keys into Soulflare, the best wallet on Solana. Moving on to other pieces of news, we have Solve Protocol, new ecosystem unlocked. Solve has built its foundations in other ecosystems, boasting a peak of 2.8 billion in managed assets. And now we're bringing BTC Finance standard to Solana. So it's going to be Solve season. We're bringing BTC to Solana. There's quite a few protocols that are working on this, right? We have Apollo, Zeus, which is all the same company, BTC Sol. Solve obviously is bringing BTC. I know Foundation is working on a couple of initiatives as well to bring BTC to Solana. So yeah, just something to keep note of. We got more BTC Finance coming onto Solana.
I think that's what we need, because we want to have all assets trading on Sol, and Bitcoin is the biggest one out there. So if you have some random BTCs flying around and you're not putting them to work, well, you can do it on Solana.
Yeah. I really love the way that I think Gianni puts it. You interviewed Gianni over in Singapore, which is
Yep.
BTC is the asset, but Solana is the infrastructure. And that's really the way that it should be. We have the most DeFi activity on Solana. So, folks should be doing their BTC finance on Solana. Moving forward to other pieces of news, man, the rise of the prop AMMs, man, they are taking over the game. You look at this market
Yep.
share right now.
It's
There's
crazy.
this prop AMM called Humidify, and it's surpassed all major centralized exchanges, including Binance, in weekly Sol USD spot volume just 5 months after launching on Solana. Humidify, as you may or may not know, is being pushed very, very heavily by Jupiter. They've even launched their token Wet through Jupiter. Cash has been tweeting Wet everywhere. It's quite funny.
How's that
But yeah,
doing, by the way?
just
Is there,
I
yeah,
do not pay attention to Wet token price, but perhaps we should do that on future.
interesting. Yeah. I
Technical
mean,
analysis.
looking at this, yeah, looking at this, this data right there, yeah, pretty insane, isn't it?
Yeah, Sol USDC. I mean, Jesus, they're at over $15 billion in volume. You know, and you're looking at Binance. Binance is hitting about 10 billion. So Binance is getting outcompeted very heavily by Humidify. They're beating out all the major exchanges: Coinbase, Binance, OKX, Bybit, Kraken. So that's very interesting to see.
I mean, yeah,
Humidify is making some major waves.
huge. I think it's
Yeah.
huge, honestly, because you remember when there was like almost no hope that we ever see the amount of volume on chain compared to off chain, right, on Sexes. And
Yeah.
in the past 12 months, we saw a steady decline on both fronts. Mindshare for centralized exchanges and kind of brand positioning got a big hit. And then on the other side as well, just numbers and metrics, and everything is
Yeah.
coming on chain. So I think it's very feasible to see a future in a few years where most of I think a lot of centralized exchange might actually die if they don't pivot to anything else. And a lot of stuff is just going to happen on chain. That's huge. I
Yeah.
think that's huge.
Yeah. I mean, you're seeing some very forward-thinking sexes that are already looking at on-chain activities. So, like Bybit, as an example, now has
Mm.
Buy Real, right?
Yeah.
And I think Nomu, not Nomu, excuse me, Swissborg is also looking pretty heavily into on-chain activity. So clearly,
Mm-hmm.
there are some sexes that can already see the writing on the wall, and they're
Yep.
trying to make sure that they don't become a head on someone's mantle. So moving on to sponsor news, and of course, we love to talk about our friends over at Soulflare. So there's an exclusive for all Soulflare users. So there's a new 10% APY yield unlock for people who use Soulflare. So Raya Finance provides cross-chain liquidity, which means that they're able to offer yield opportunities that are not available only on Solana, but through any chain that is integrated through Raya. And
Mm.
so what that means for you as a Soulflare user is that you can deposit your USDC, USDT, or your Zcash and earn up to 10% APY and borrow across chains supported with multi-chain accounts by Raya Finance. There seems to be like a new multi-chain asset provider every week. I'm really curious to see how that market evolves over time. But the long and the short of it,
Mm.
Simon, is that you now have more ways to put your money to work.
Yeah, and what do you think about the choice of assets you can use for this? You have USDC, you have USDT, and you have Zcash.
Yeah.
All right.
This kind of goes into what you were talking about earlier in this call, which is that Solana is happy to work with any asset, whether that's Monad or whether or not that's Bitcoin
Yep.
or whether or not that's Zcash, and
Exactly.
that's really good positioning for Solana because it's less about
Mm.
us versus them and more about you do your thing, but then like let's bring the DeFi activity onto Solana, which is a win-win proposition for us.
Yep, it's so smart. That is, I
Yes.
think, that is the way to go, and we'll see. We'll see much more of that in future with securities and actual assets from the real world coming on chain, with bonds, with commodities, with forex, anything that's tradable right now off chain is going to come to Solana, including anything that's new, including competitive blockchains and their tokens like Monad, including Zcash, Bitcoin itself. They're all coming to Solana. So
Yeah.
I don't know. You can't be bearish on this ecosystem really right now.
No, not at all.
Only if you look at the price.
And I'm backstage, so I can see Simon flipping back to the Sol charts.
it's going down right now. Yeah, a little bit.
So we have the Oscars coming to Solana. We talked about this last week, but this is going to be absolutely delightful. On December 13th, which is the last day of Breakpoint, Solflare, as the title sponsor of Breakpoint, is going to be holding the community awards. Community spotlight. So we have two different categories, one for builders and one more on the community and culture side. The nominations close today. So if you want to nominate anybody for a particular category, you should definitely do so.
Soul Brothers.
So how exactly do you submit your...
Yeah, let me tell you. So guys, this is a call to action. If you're listening to this right now, or if you're listening in the recording later today and this is still open, then please go over to solana.com/breakpoint/awards. That's all you have to do. solana.com/breakpoint/awards. You scroll down and there's a section called community and culture. And there is the Solana Ambassador Award, as well as the Solana Best Content Creator. And I think both of them are feasible for Soul Brothers, but Best Content Creator could also be Eno or Simon Molitor. So you can also put in your individual person down there. But for the Ambassador Award, at least over there, plug in Soul Brothers Pod, because that's our handle, Soul Brothers Pod, as the Solana Ambassador Award for the nominations on solana.com/breakpoint/awards. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, no, I'm doing that right now. I have no shame. Submitted Soul Brothers Pod, and then Best Content Creator. I have to do, of course, my buddy.
Great. This way we did each other. That's good to know.
Simon, is it with an O? Am I retarded? Simon Molitor?
Yeah, looks good. Yeah.
Okay. Submit nomination. That's right. You too can submit a nomination for the community awards hosted by Solflare. So the nominations end today. So please, would love to get those lovely nominations.
Yes.
And moving on. Go ahead.
I think I even thought that like you can use your Safari and your Chrome, for example, to chip in twice. Just a little growth hack here. Anyway,
well, I mean, this isn't like voting though, right? This is just the nominations. The voting will come afterwards.
Yeah, it's true.
The next thing that we want to talk about, speaking of BuyReal, which is the on-chain equivalent of Bybit, so it's their DEX, their decentralized exchange, the partner to the yin to their yang. So they have real farmers spotted at CCCC Lisbon 2025. So I believe that these are literal seeds, and the real inspiration behind this is that there's a campaign right now, right, on BuyReal, where you can copy farm what other seasoned farmers do with SNS. So much like copy trading, where you look at someone's wallet and seeing how they're buying and selling, copying farming is a feature on BuyReal where you can copy a wallet's farming strategy of a point system, or at least farming season. It's a specific campaign that SNS is doing with BuyReal.
Really cool. Yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Good to see the collab as well between BuyReal and SNS.
There comes a moment in every person's life where they look at a string of random wallet characters and whisper, "I deserve better." I agree. We do deserve better. Oh man, I miss my dog. Anywho, so other pieces. Sorry, my dog died. So another piece of news that we'd like to talk about is what a day at the Solana network state. Balaji opened with a standout question and answer session, and the energy stayed high throughout the SNS session and every conversation afterwards. Grateful for the builders, curious minds, and new faces. Road to Breakpoint is officially underway. Geez Louise, these guys are going to be on the road for like the next few weeks. Hong Kong to Singapore. So yeah, Dotso, the mascot of SNS, seems like they're on the way to Singapore. So Network State is well underway.
Yeah, they have like I think a pretty good relation with Balaji by now, because he actually gave a good shout out as well at Accelerate to SNS, to that's all, because he kind of gets what they do, which is obvious because it's very simple from a concept perspective. So it's cool. Yeah, good collab.
And he deeply believes in the identity layer. So you should also be talking to Simon.
True.
This is a fun little activation that we're seeing over, I believe, in Australia, perhaps New Zealand. Is that okay? No, I thought that was a weed dispensary. It is not. They sell pies and hummus.
Almost.
But we have a flash trade billboard, and it's done by the teams that released a token called Billboard. It's called Billboard CTO. So they put billboards around the world to promote communities and brands on Solana. That is a very interesting business. I like that. But yeah, Flash Trade has had a billboard put up over, I believe, in either Australia or New Zealand.
Cool.
But more importantly, I think that this graphic speaks way more about what we want to see in 2026. And we're already seeing the shift, Simon, right?
Yeah.
You said, and you were correct, it was unthinkable that on-chain trading would overtake, centralized exchange, volume. And now we're seeing that we're eating into their market share for, futures trading. So the perps game on chain has been fundamentally changed. I would suspect that a lot of this has to do with Hyperliquid. If I looked, I don't know where these numbers are coming from, but I would imagine a lot of it does have to do with Hyperliquid. Hyperliquid was just kind of exploded onto the scene this year. So congrats to all our hype holders. But yes, the DEX to SEX futures trading volume ratio has increased considerably over time. And I want to see a fully green chart, Simon. I want to see a 96-4 split in our favor.
It's realistic, bro. It's realistic. Not this year, not next year, but I think if we're gonna stick around long enough here in this industry, it's gonna be the norm at some point. I like the way Anatoly, the founder of Solana, co-founder of Solana, put it in an interview, where he said that when he created Solana, he imagined in his mind the sci-fi version of finance in 2050, and that in his mind he saw Solana. Like, this is how it looks like, the sci-fi version of the financial industry, really. And I think, back then when new technologies were emerging, when the internet was new and there were people like us tinkering at emerging tech, they obviously had their vision, but there's always that question mark in your head where you're like, can we really do it? Like, is it really possible? And you believe enough in it that you just keep going. But then at some point, the reality actually is what you imagined 10 years ago. And that's going to be wild for all of us here that are in this space. Because right now, again, we're still early. It sounds bad by now because we've been saying this since years. But we are still early. I think there's so much more potential in the next decade to see. And good to see more volume on chain, especially if it's coming to our friends at Flash Trade as well. So if you don't trade yet on Flash Trade, then consider heading over there. You can actually go to flash.solbrotherspot.com to sign up via Sol Brothers now to Flash Trade. So if you're a new trader and you are still stuck on centralized exchanges and you're still accepting KYC exchanges with withdrawal fees and slow on-ramping, then move your money on-chain and go to flash.solbrotherspot.com and trade on-chain and farm some FAF tokens for your volume.
All right, everybody. Well, that concludes this week's latest and greatest on Solana. Simon, is there anything that you want to conclude with today?
That's all. You guys stay safe out there. This week is going to be a crazy week. We see the volatility already right now in the charts because price is going up and down a lot. So yeah, stay safe and tune in again when it's time for our next version. We're going to have another one later this week. Until then, make sure you follow our Soul Brothers account as well on YouTube at Soul Brothers Pod on YouTube. Subscribe over there, please, and interact with our videos because this is going to support the podcast a lot. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next one. Stay safe.
Adios, everyone.
Cut.
Okay. And cut. Thank you, everyone who stayed to watch the entire Soul Brothers podcast. We are now going to knock out a few timeline reactions.
Yep, let's do it off. Let's do it off screen.
Sure.
For the sake of professionalism, I think we'll do them without you guys on the stream. If you want to see our short form content, then just subscribe to our YouTube. That's how you get it. So yeah, thanks guys for being with us here on the live as well and dropping some comments. How's the gym session going? Says BM.
Dog passed away a few days ago, so skipped a couple of days. But back at it again this week. So yeah, so with the exception of some very brief grieving, I've been going to the gym. However, I have inexplicably hurt my back. I don't know how I hurt my back because I've been stretching for 20 minutes every single gym session and keeping it very light on the weights specifically so I wouldn't hurt my back. And now I'm eating muscle. I'm taking muscle relaxants. So that fucking sucks. Yeah.
All right.
I think that when I was trying to do a pull up, I like contorted my back some weird way, and then it kind of like it's screwed with a lower back muscle. But that's okay. We train around the injuries. We don't use them as an excuse not to go.
Yeah. Also, I think it's gonna get better over time. Like you gotta get more resilient once you put your body through the workouts.
Yes,
it is what it is. Right now, body's complaining. He's like, "What the fuck are you doing to me?" Like,
yes,
I've been sitting on my ass. What are you doing now? So yeah. Anyway, thanks guys. We'll see you in the next one. We're gonna do our little time reactions and we're done. Bye bye.
Thanks.